Hello and welcome. I'm Darren Ganga, and welcome to another edition of Trailblazers in Sport, put on by the University of the West Indies Faculty of Sport. I'm so excited to introduce this special guest we have for you today. It's a young lady who started her studies at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, then moved to Cave Hill campus in Barbados, graduated with a first-class honors degree in a BSc Sport Sciences, and now she is a pro cyclist in Spain. I welcome Llori Sharpe to this interview. Welcome, Llori, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me today. I know you have a very busy schedule, so we'll get things going. Congratulations are in order for all your accomplishments, both in the academic side of things and as a cyclist. Let's start first with you introducing yourself to the public. I know some persons know of you, some persons might know of your exploits and your accomplishments. So let's go from the start. Who is Llori Sharpe? A little bit about your background so people can know more about you.
Right. So as you said, and as they can see on the screen, my name is Llori Sharpe. I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. Just more into like my background in sports specifically. I started out swimming like when I was like really, really young. So my mom, she signed me up for like learn to swim classes when I was maybe 8 months old or thereabout. So I was pretty active from a very young age. And then throughout my younger years, I did a bit of ballet, I did karate. And then I focused primarily on swimming when I was about 7. I did that competitively until I was maybe 15, 16. And then I also did a bit of track and field here and there throughout those years. And then I made the definitive decision to do triathlon back in 2015 or 2016. And then I made the switch from triathlon to just cycling back in 2020. So a lot of things in the sporting world, but I'm happy to be where I am now. Yeah.
Great. So thank you for that nice introduction into, what you started doing. Now, my first interaction with you was way back in 2020 when you were part of that Emerging Athlete Development Program put on by the Faculty of Sport at the University of the West Indies, and of course, funded by the Caribbean Development Bank. You were one of 3 athletes back then. As you mentioned earlier, you competed in the triathlon. So tell me about Llori Sharpe at that stage of your career and your mindset back then.
Right. So at the time, I was in triathlon for roughly 4 years. And funny enough, that was also the year that I decided to make the switch from triathlon to cycling. So at that point, I wanted to stick with triathlon because I felt like I needed to. But at the same time, I thought I could pursue something else. And I'm happy that I chose cycling because, it has gotten me to where I am right now, being a professional cyclist here in Europe. At the time, I was just having a bit confused at what I wanted to do. But luckily, I had like my parents for support and for some guidance. And it's been quite hectic since then.
Right, just staying with that phase in your career, that Emerging Athlete Development Program, did that assist you in making that decision and that switch? How helpful was that program to you?
Yeah, I think when I got into that program, it really unveiled my endurance capabilities. And of course, triathlon is an endurance sport, likewise cycling. And I thought that maybe with the physiological discoveries that I made through that program, I thought cycling would have been a better avenue to go down. So it helped in that regard, I must say.
Okay, and not just staying with cycling, you've transitioned into this discipline. Who are your inspirations?
Oh, for sure, Tennille Campbell. She's from Trinidad and Tobago. And funny enough, she has become like one of my closest friends while I'm here in Spain because she literally lives up the road from me, like less than 500 meters. So I get to hang out with her. It's funny that she's someone I looked up to and still look up to, and then she has become a friend. So it's been really nice interacting with her and learning from her in whatever way I can. So yeah, to me for sure.
So great. So there is a little bit of West Indian sisterhood
Yeah.
happening in Spain at the moment. I mean, funny enough, in a previous position that I held, I had some sort of influence as well in her development as a cyclist here in Trinidad. So you can probably ask her about that. Now let's talk about that balance between your sporting ambitions and your academic sort of responsibilities. Many persons throughout the world, they would like to be in your position where they pursue both and have the best of both worlds. What are the challenges in traveling that sort of journey?
Um, I will admit it hasn't been easy in any way, shape, or form. It's definitely a difficult balance, but I do think due to me starting sport at such a young age and having to have that balance from so on since I was in prep school all through high school, I was able to just be in a bit more of a comfortable position, for lack of a better word. So I was able to find that balance from early on because I remember when I was in prep school specifically, everyone who was swimming, they would stop swimming for weeks on end just because of GSAT. And I mean, GSAT is like it was the local like primary exit examination for students who would make the transition to high school. So yeah, everyone would stop at for GSAT, and I would still swim. I would still train. Same thing when I was doing CSEC and Cape. Everyone would stop doing things, and I would still go training. I remember when I was doing CSEC, I had like a weekend between one exam and the other, and I went and did the Caribbean Championships in triathlon, and that was in Miami. So I left maybe like the Thursday, did the race on the Saturday, came back the Sunday, and had the exam on the Monday, and it was still did pretty well, I guess. I still got good results. So it's just finding that balance from early on that I think put me in an advantageous position and just being able to maintain that throughout the
Right.
years.
For the sake of everyone looking on, you make the statement finding that balance.
Yeah,
Many young persons out there would want to know more. What
how to
does that
find the
entail?
balance.
It said that success is an attitude. It's about how you live on a daily basis. Just disaggregate that balance for us a little bit more. What that means daily. Is that core values in terms of time management, in terms of
Yes.
discipline? Tell us in your own way how that balance was achieved.
Yeah, as you just said, finding time management, of course, and I think knowing what you want to achieve at the end of the day is something that's really important. If you want to achieve academic success, if you want to achieve athletic success, you don't necessarily have to compromise one for the other. I think, especially if you're in a good environment, that's another thing that that I was lucky to have. I have a great and supportive environment around me. My parents, my friends, very supportive, very encouraging. So that's another factor, a positive factor that I was fortunate to have. Um, and as I was saying before, when you know what you want and you're like hell bent on achieving it, I think you shouldn't let anything stop you to achieve it.
Beautiful. I love the way you've just described all those things, powerful messages for young people. Now, did Llori Sharpe discover these sort of approaches on her own?
No.
How did you inculcate those values to get you to where you have been and where you are right now?
For sure, it's just learning or observing my parents and the attitudes they have to their work and just their life on a whole. And they also encourage me not to be one dimensional. I think people on a whole shouldn't just be one dimensional. I think you should be multifaceted and have different or several sorts of talents, I guess you could say. And yes, you can be academically inclined, do well in school or whatever, but I think you should be more than just academic person. You need to have some other sort of uh, accolade, I guess, or just
Or
something
interests?
other than, yes, other interest. Like you can't just be one dimensional, essentially.
Okay, so I know you spent a fair amount of time at Mona campus, then you moved
Yeah.
to Cave Hill campus. What was that transition like for you as a University of the West Indies student? We always talk about one university. Break it down for us, the sort of transition you had to make, or the lack of transition, whether it
It
was
was
very
fairly
similar to your
easy.
experience.
It was fairly easy to make the transfer. I mean, I just contacted or reached out to the department, expressed my interest in wanting to make the transfer, and they were really helpful and communicative in what I needed to provide in terms of documentation. And I just made the transition. And then, of course, I reached out to local Bajans to see who I could ride with at the time, which groups I could ride with. So I could have not just school, but also still have my cycling activities there. Yeah, the hardest thing was that the groups start riding at 4 a.m. in the morning. That was the hardest thing. That was super exhausting, but I mean, I did what I had to do, and yeah, I mean,
Was the campus
especially
culture
with
different in
mm,
Cave Hill as against Mona?
I think so, yeah, because I think there are more nationalities, I would say, at the Caveville campus, with more of islands being represented there. And also because I lived on campus, I actually got a feel for that Caribbean environment, because when I'm in Jamaica, I just stayed at home with my parents and just like drove to school and drove back home from classes. Whereas when I was at Cave Hill, I was actually on campus all the time. So I got to interact with the different nationalities. I mean, before that, I would have primarily interacted with maybe Trinis, and because I have my sisters are from Trinidad, my sisters and my brother are Trinis, so I had that sort of connection with Trinidad. But apart from that, I really didn't have any sort of interaction with the other Caribbean islands. Yeah, so it was good to have
Right.
that.
First class honors in the BSc Sport Sciences. How excited were you when you received those results? Was it something that you expected? Were you blown away? Tell us.
Um, I would be lying if I said I was surprised. It was something I was expecting. I mean, I was able to maintain up. At one point, my GPA was 4.0. Sometimes it felt maybe like 3.9 or something. But I mean, I was always expecting to get first class honors. Um, and I mean, I worked for it. So I'm happy that even though I expected it, I'm really happy that I was actually able to achieve it. Yeah.
So, is that a core value that has worked well for you both in the academic realm and in your sporting realm as well? Your preparation, whatever value you put in, is the value that you expect out of your efforts. Tell us what drives you on a daily basis to give your best and to demand the best from yourself.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I alluded to earlier in just wanting not to be one dimensional. I want to excel in several things, and I put in the work to make sure I achieve that at the end of the day, because I don't want to be, oh, I'm Llori Sharpe, I'm just good at this one thing. I want to be good at multiple things.
Right. I did mention that you competed in the triathlon when you were
Yeah.
at Mona. You came to Cave Hill. You went through that process of selecting cycling as the discipline that you will pursue. Talk us through your journey from being that emergent athlete to now becoming pro as a cyclist.
Yes. So yeah, that was back in 2020. And then between then and now, I've become a professional cyclist for the past 2 seasons with SRAM Generation, that's based here in Europe. Yeah, so that um the genesis of like starting with Canyon SRAM was back in 2021, when I saw that they were having this application for the team, and I saw it on Instagram because that's where it was advertised, and like I noted it in my head, and then maybe a few weeks later, I was reminded actually by a Bayesian that I met while I was there, because he's a mechanic. So he follows the cycling world and everything. So he actually reminded me about it because I had forgotten. And yeah, I applied, and because I didn't really have anything to lose. It's either yes, I got in the team, which I eventually did, or no, and my life will go on. Yes, so making that transition from Caribbean cycling to European cycling has been really difficult. I mean, racing here is completely different.
Tell us
There,
what are the differences? What are
I
the
mean, the
differences?
thing, the thing I think it's because cycling is so ingrained in their culture, especially with the Dutch women, Italian women, of course. But Europe on a whole, cycling is one of their primary sports. Like how in the Caribbean we have track and field, cricket. I know we have those like grassroots initiatives and everything. So that kind of forms that base or that development for young athletes to progress into a more professional sense when they grow older. So here in Europe now, cycling is one of those things you see kids everywhere riding bikes. And I think because they have that infrastructure that allows them to make an easier progress to the professional ranks. So because we don't really have that or don't have that in the Caribbean, we're at somewhat of a disadvantage in that aspect. So that's why I would say it's difficult for non-Europeans in particular to make the transition here. But I think with time and patience with yourself, you can get there. I mean, look on Tinu, for example. I mean, yeah.
Walking that part of being a professional athlete. Give us a snapshot of what your daily routine is like in Spain right now.
Uh, so I'm in off season, so it's pretty much very, very relaxed.
So give us
Um,
a in season and off season
okay.
snapshot.
Yeah. So when I'm racing a lot, uh, I mean, I'll wake up, eat something, head out for, depending on the training session. Like on average, maybe I get in 18 to 20 hours of training a week. Um, Yeah, so it just depends on this session because sometimes you have intervals, sometimes you have just a long endurance day. Um, and then when I come back, eat again, chill for a bit, and then if I have plans with friends or anything, I meet up with them in the evening, in the late afternoon, evening, and just relax the rest of the day. Um, Oh, and earlier in the season though, I still had school, so I would have. So fortunately, KV was really helpful in having me do online classes. So really grateful for that. So I would come home in the evenings and then have classes like at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Sometimes they would be recorded, sometimes not. So that was difficult at the time, but I mean, I made do with what I had to do. Uh, and now, because I'm in off season, very relaxed. I wake up whenever, do whatever I really want for the
And
day.
because you have a first class honors degree, you're very relaxed, extra relaxed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It would have been great if I was able to come back for graduation, but couldn't. Um, but yeah, it's just I'm just enjoying the time I have here for the next, I think, what, 2 weeks or there, 2 to 3 weeks, and then I head back home to Jamaica.
Okay, how proud are your family and friends with what you've accomplished so far, both academically and in cycling?
I mean, I hope they're proud. I think they are. Um, and as I said, I'm just grateful for the support they provided throughout the years. I mean, even though I am primarily intrinsically motivated, like I have that internal drive, I do truly appreciate like that additional external sort of motivation, like to keep me pushing. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you one thing. The Dean of the Faculty of Sport, all staff members at the Faculty of Sport at the UWI, we're so proud of the way you've
Thank you.
transitioned and navigated the challenges of the academic responsibility that you've carried to your challenges as an athlete and the way you've sort of conquered those things. We are so proud of you. Let's
Thank you.
talk a little bit about Llori Sharpe beyond 2023
Mhm.
October. What can we expect from her? I know that there are UCI points up for grabs. Many cyclists go through that series of
But
competition in
yeah.
different tournaments to accumulate points for that ultimate opportunity to compete in the Olympics. What are your plans?
I mean, I think as an athlete, the Olympics is something that you would always look forward to. And I can only try my best to go to, and there are always races here in Europe that have points up for grabs, but because like sometimes it's super competitive, um, you don't always get them. So especially when you go to more regional events, like I recently went to the Caribbean Cycling Championships in Guadeloupe the other day, and I was able to secure 40 points, I think it was. It was between 30 and 40, because I came second in the road race and sixth in the time trial. Um, and then as I accumulate points in regional, national events, um, hopefully maybe in some events over here in Europe, uh, I can hopefully qualify for the Olympics at some point. Yeah.
Okay, so that's from a cycling point of view. What about academically? Are there plans for Llori Sharpe to pursue a master's degree and then a doctorate? What do
Gosh.
you have in store?
I think I definitely need an academic break. So maybe I don't want to put a timestamp on it. But I do have an interest in pursuing a master's degree. I will admit that. I'm not sure when, but it's something I am looking forward to do at some point. Yeah. I'm not sure about the
Okay,
doctorate, but the masters I can
okay.
handle.
We'll follow you. We'll follow you. We'll track you. We're hoping that it will be at the University of the West Indies as well, all things being
Mm.
equal. Now, there are numerous persons looking at this interview and more so young aspiring athletes watching and listening to what you're saying and being in awe about your story and your journey. What would be your words of advice to those young aspiring athletes?
I think a lot of people say this, but I will agree. Just have fun with what you're doing. Because if you're not having fun, then what's the point? To some extent, I must say. But I do think your enjoyment in the sport or whatever endeavor is should be highly prioritized, because if not, you'll just end up being miserable or falling to a trap of just feeling obligated to do something or having. For me I experienced last year, at some point I wasn't really enjoying cycling, and then I made the conscious effort to. I think at the time it was because I wasn't really I didn't make the deliberate effort to like make friends for the most part or do anything outside of cycling. And this year it was like I prioritize making new friends, going out more, doing more fun things, because yes, I'm here to ride my bike and that's my profession. But at the end of the day, I mean, there needs to be some sort of enjoyment outside of cycling and just to have fun, because yeah, you're just going to get a bit miserable at times.
So,
Yeah.
talking about fun, we're going to close this nice interview with a few quick fire questions. And we'll have some fun as well. So, I just want you to be honest, shoot
Okay.
from the hips, just answer as you see fit. All right. What's Llori
Okay,
Sharpe
ready.
favorite dress code?
Casual. Yeah, I'm casual.
Okay. What's Llori Sharpe favorite dish?
Ackee and
Culinary
saltfish with
delight.
fried dumplings. Ackee
Okay.
and saltfish fried, hands
Who's Llori
down. Yes.
Sharpe? Who's Llori Sharpe favorite cyclist?
Uh, I'll go with Tinu at the moment. Yeah.
Wow. Caribbean sister.
Yeah.
Right? And last but not least, if you had 3 words to describe Llori Sharpe, what would those 3 words be?
Ambitious, I think. Yeah, ambitious. Let's go with determined and I like reading, so bookworm. Yeah.
Okay. I realize Llori Sharpe is a deep thinker, eh? She's taking a long time to be
Yeah,
precise in the manner in which
let's
she
add that
describes
extra one. Deep
herself.
thinker too.
Yeah. And a favorite sport outside of cycling?
I mean, well, triathlon has cycling in there, so I don't want to say triathlon. Well, back in the day, I was really into wrestling, so let's go with wrestling.
Okay. I thought you might have said track and field,
Ah.
running or something like that. Being from Jamaica, right? With those sort of influences. Anyway, Llori, it's been an absolute pleasure. On
Yeah,
behalf of the
likewise.
University of the West Indies Faculty of Sport, we would just like to reiterate how proud we are of all your accomplishments. I guess everyone looking on would want to express those same sentiments. We wish you all the very best. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. And we're so proud to feature you on yet another episode of Trailblazers in Sport, put on by the Faculty of Sport at the University of the West Indies. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.